So then I will start my talk. I'm very happy that you attended. The title of my talk is Distant Reading of Religious or Online Communities, a case study for 3 religious forums on Reddit. My name is Thomas Schmidt from the Media Informatics group at the University of Regensburg, and I will go right into the talk. As you might know, religious discourse, specifically among younger people, is not only carried out in churches and in the outside, but also primarily online. You can find a lot of forums for your specific religious beliefs or spiritual directions. You can find a lot of content like podcasts. You find the social media content of specific religious groups. Or of course, you can follow and discuss your favorite or your major spiritual leader. So it's clear that a lot of religious discourse and religious discussions, spiritual discussions are carried out online. This is of course of utmost interest for religious studies, and while there is a lot of work in the classical hermeneutic sense of analysis of these platforms, there's not a lot of work concerning computational analysis, like computational text analysis and distant reading. There is a bit of work concerning the analysis of religious texts. In the context of computational social science, you will find a bit of work concerning the analysis of the communication of extremist fundamentalist groups. And of course, there's also a little bit of research doing similar stuff like we do. For example, Fala et al. Did some topic modeling on a Muslim forum. We want to continue this work to analyze religious discourse online via computational methods. Primarily, we are interested in the differences and specific features of various religious subgroups. But at the moment, we are very explorative and descriptive. We basically just want to reflect upon the benefits and the limitations of different computational techniques and explore what works best or what leads to the most insights. And later on, we might validate hypotheses or other research questions. What is the platform we are working with? It's Reddit. Reddit describes itself as the front page of the internet. Reddit basically consists of what was called in the time of forums threads. So you have a lot of subreddits for different topics where people discuss different topics. For example, like you can see here, the subreddit for Christianity. Reddit is very open-minded in the sense that, of course, everyone can participate and the data is rather easy and open to gather, which makes it very popular among the research community. The specific corpus we are creating or we have created is the entire content for 1 year of the Christianity subreddit, the Islam subreddit. So as you can see, we wanted to compare 2 of the major monotheistic religions. But we also added some a Reddit that is more directed toward a more spiritual direction, which is called R Occult. Yes, as you can see from the topics of R Occult, it's more into spiritual stuff, esoteric stuff, which we find also interesting in the comparison to the other religious subforums, and which is also a direction that is growing in popularity in recent years. So just to get some terms straight, what we will look at is the Reddit itself, which consists of submissions, which is, so to speak, the beginning of a thread, and such a thread, which is most of the time a question or some content that is shared, consists of comments. And we gathered all of this stuff via a API wrapper for a time span of 1 year. It's mostly English language because the user base of Reddit is mostly American, and these are some of our primary statistics of our corpus. I don't want to go into detail of everything. Overall, our corpus has over 50 million tokens, so quite a large corpus. But it's not very equally distributed. As you can see, the Christianity subreddit is much, much larger than the other ones, which is due to the fact that Reddit is simply a more popular among American younger adults, primarily male adults, than the other, which of course leads to this huge difference. But we try to only look at normalized values, so the difference does not skew too much of our data. But it is, of course, a limitation or something to keep in mind when interpreting the data. What are we doing with this? We eliminated stop words, we lemmatized the words, and one of the methods we look at is looking at most frequent words and most frequent bigrams. We also look at collocations via pointwise mutual information, which is a specific approach to measure the co-occurrence of words, and we visualize them on networks, and we perform basic lexicon-based sentiment and emotion analysis. Just to get some understanding of the corpus, we will look first at the most frequent words, which is not too much surprise and focused around the naming of spiritual or religious entities like God, Jesus, and so on in the Christian forum. It's interesting that in the Christian forum we find it's the only forum where we find a sentiment word in the first most frequent words. In Islam, it's very similar, while there are different terms for what God is meant or how the religion is called. Of course, the forum that goes more outside of the box is the occult forum. You can see that people talk a lot about magic God, and similar things. It's also interesting that it says the forum where in the top 10 words, we have 2 words relating to the senses, feel and experience, which might also tell a little bit about what people are talking about in this specific forum. A bit more interesting and less basic is the analysis of bigrams, so the frequent co-occurrence of 2 words next to each other. What we found is that mostly, again, spiritual leaders, entities are among the most frequent ones. Jesus Christ and Christ, Lord Jesus, King James. In the Christian forum, the Christian forum is the only one in the top 10 words which has some, politically or a combination of words that might point to some insightful discussions, which is gay people. We don't have this dealing with the word gay in any of the other forums and this frequency, which is quite interesting. In the Islam forum, it's the same, which is a bit interesting is here that a lot of political terms appear, like you can see Middle East, Saudi Arabia. Other than that, it's also a lot of spiritual leaders. Yes, and the occult forms with words like Golden Dawn and magic and so on is, again, going into the esoteric direction. If we now look at the collocations, we visualize these collocations via network graphs, so to speak. I will show the graph and then talk a little bit about it. The closer the word, the more frequent it appears with the word in the middle. And we are specifically looking at some selected terms that we think are spiritually interesting. Here we will present the results for God and death, but we also analyzed other words like love or life or something like this. However, if you look at the word God, what you find is, and what skews a lot of the analysis here is Bible verses. So what we found is that people quote a lot the most important book of the specific religion, which of course leads to some words being more frequently mentioned with another word than other words. This is very apparent here. We have some more positive collocations like the word forgive with God. This is actually something that we also find with the Muslim forum. But we also find, which is the only strong collocations compared to the other forums, a collocation with the word exists, which might point to discussions about the existence of God specifically in this religious group. Of course, the occult forum is again pretty different to the other forums. We find a lot of talking of a lot of adjectives, so to speak, to precisely name the type of God that is talked about. It is also interesting that this is the only forum where we find a strong collocation with a more negative contribution or negative connotation, which is damn. So this might lead to some atheist, agnostic discussions. At least this is what we think about it. If you look at the collocations for dev, we again have a lot of collocations with specific Bible verses. Dev seems to be most discussed in the Christian forum because we find the most collocations with words. But as you can see, you see words like stoned and ascension, ascension in the sense of the story of Jesus Christ. So this is a lot of Bible verses, of course. And other than that, a lot of negative connotations. Penalty, which is a strong collocation in both the Islam, the Christian forum, the taste and angel. If you might wonder what this is also a specific quote from the Quran that is very frequently used. And the occult, from the pure sentiment of these collocations, the occult form is most different to the other forms, of course, which shows here with rather positive discussions about rebirth or life, but also some negative discussions in the collocation with fear. As you can see, we talk a lot about sentiment and connotations and stuff like this. So of course, we also performed some basic sentiment analysis via Veda, which is a free-to-use library that performs sophisticated lexicon-based sentiment analysis and is specifically designed for social media. However, you can see we don't have a lot of differences that we can point to. You can see that the occult forum is a bit less negative and more positive than other forums, and that the Christian forum is the most sentimentally charged with highest values in positive and negative. These values are, the differences are, however, rather small. However, it is interesting that the majority in all three forums is rather positive, which is something that you might not expect if you think about political and religious discourse online. The emotion analysis is, we performed some basic emotion analysis, but it's a bit more limited than the analysis with Veda. It's a lexicon-based approach. Veda is basically also lexicon-based approach, but more sophisticated in applying negations and looking for specific social media content like emojis. With the emotion analysis we performed, we basically count emotion words according to the NRC emotion lexicon, which is very established. But of course, we did not evaluate the performance on this specific type of data. Therefore, I don't want to go into too much detail of the results we have with the emotion analysis. It's basically not that different to the basic sentiment analysis. If you look at the positive and the negative results, this graph shows the percentage of the specific type of words among the entire corpus or the entire subcorpus. The only thing which is all, again, a result in line with the previous sentiment analysis is that, as you can see, the Christian forum is the mostly charged with emotional terms. However, you must keep in mind that the Christian forum is also the largest of them, so there might be a skew in this result. So we didn't present all of the data here. I recommend looking at the paper for more information. And we find some differences concerning the forums, which is not surprising, but overall we find also a lot of similarities, even for the word frequency and so on. Some similar concepts, while different terms still show similar results. Of course, the occult forum is a very special case. We think that the engram analysis is quite interesting, but of course limited because it's just frequency. We had the most interesting insights gained by the collocation analysis, and we think that the sentiment and emotion analysis has yet to be validated for this type of corpus. In our future work, we want to address the large size differences and also the skewing factor that the user base is primarily male, young, and American. So we tend to increase our corpus. We also want to explore word embeddings, similar to the collocation analysis, to see how different spiritual terms are intertwined. We also want to apply more sophisticated methods like topic modeling or named entity recognition. And as I already mentioned, the corpus is very unequally distributed, so we are planning to increase the corpus with more content from various religious subgroups to gain more insights. So very explorative and descriptive. I hope you still had interest and fun in the talk. And if you want to know more about the project, you can engage with me. Here's all the information you need, and thank you for your attention.